So when you're knitting stripes or doing color work in knitting, you might have noticed that if you add a new color in the middle of a row, a funny thing happens. You're knitting along green, 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 green. In the middle of the row, right here, it's really obvious that this is where I switched to the yellow. This stair step right here is called a jog. Now there's a couple ways to avoid that when you're knitting stripes or doing color work. And one way is if you're working flat, just starting your color on the edges at the beginning of a new row. But what if you're working in the round, like on a cowl or a hat or a mitten or a sweater or any number of garments that are knit in the round? How do you make your knitting what's called jogless? Down here, this part of the swatch, I knit jogless stripes. So you can see that they're straight across, no stair step or jog to be seen. So how do I do that? It's actually really simple. This is the right-handed video tutorial. There's a left-handed one in my channel. Just look for it there. All right, so right now I'm going to start this on a purl row. If you want to see this done starting on a knit row, you can check out the left-handed video. They're the exact same technique, they're just done with opposite hands. So I'm going to work to the center of my row where I want to change to my second color. In this case, my first color is going to be yellow and my second color is going to be green. So I'm just working to the middle of the row. And then simply grab your second color. Again, in this case, my second color is green, and just start working it. And now you might be thinking when you see that, but isn't that just gonna result in a jog in my knitting since it's the middle of the row? You might think that, but the trick that I'll show you in like 1 to 5 seconds, depending on how fast I knit, it's such a simple trick, and it's how you get rid of that jog, or avoid that jog rather, in knitting. Alright, so we've switched to our second color in the middle of this row, and now we are going to knit up until we get back to the very first stitch we did in the second color, which in this case is green. Alright, so we got to that first green stitch in the second color. What we're going to do is simply slip it purlwise and keep on knitting in that same color. And when you do the first, knit the first loop past that first green stitch, you might want to just tighten the tail of the yellow or the first color, because that loop will loosen a little since its tail is just hanging out in the back. Anyway, so we knit up to that first loop we did in green, and we slipped it purlwise. If you're doing the slip on the purl side, you will also slip purlwise. So there's our slipped stitch right there. Now we knit on the other side until we come to that slipped stitch. Like so. And then we get to that slip stitch and we just work it like a normal purl stitch, or knit stitch if you're working the other side. You just keep working across that row. And then, because we slipped that very first stitch of the second color when we added it, and then worked the stitch right over it when we came back to it, what happens is that that first stitch gets pulled up, bringing it in line with the rest of the row, resulting in a jogless stripe. So if you look closer at the swatches down here, you can see that I did that here, because if you look at this green row, there's 3 stitches here in the very center of the swatch, and there's 4 stitches here and 4 stitches here. 4, 3, 4, because we slipped one stitch, pulling the stripe in line to avoid that jog, resulting in a jogless stripe. Now you might be noticing that you can see the ridge where the jogless stripe is traveling up the work in this swatch, but that's because this is not yet blocked. So when you do your color work and you do this jogless knitting technique, just make sure to give it a little tug to straighten where the jog you did was, and that will result in a perfect jogless stripe.